The pen was already touching the paper. Marcus Ryu barely glanced at the final page of the contract as the lawyers around him watched in silence. His business partner Victor Delacroix leaned back confidently in his chair. The rain outside Orion Tower poured against the massive windows of the 38th floor boardroom. Everything about the moment felt expensive, powerful, final. Marcus lifted the pen. Then the door burst open. A small voice cut through the room. "Don't sign that. It's a setup." Every head turned at once. Standing at the doorway was a tiny black girl with braided hair, breathing hard like she had just run a marathon. In her hand she clutched a thick, worn French dictionary. Security guards rushed toward her immediately. "Hey! You can't be up here," one barked. But Marcus didn't look at the guards. He stared at the girl. His eyes narrowed slowly. The entire room went silent. "Wait," Marcus said quietly. The guards froze. Marcus leaned back in his chair and studied the child like she was some strange puzzle. "How did this child get into my office?" The girl swallowed nervously but stepped forward anyway. "My name is Amara Johnson," she said. "And if you sign that paper, everything you built will collapse." Victor Delacroix suddenly straightened in his chair. Marcus noticed it instantly. That small reaction did not escape him. Marcus tapped the contract with his pen. "And how exactly would you know that?" Amara tightened her grip on the dictionary. "Because 30 minutes ago," she said softly, "I heard him explaining the whole plan." She pointed directly at Victor. "And he said it in French." The room exploded with tension. Victor forced out a small laugh. "This is ridiculous," he said. "Marcus, she's a child. Someone clearly coached her." But Marcus didn't laugh. Marcus had survived too many betrayals to ignore instincts. He leaned forward. "Bring her here." The guards exchanged confused looks but obeyed. Amara walked slowly toward the giant conference table. She looked tiny standing in front of Marcus Ryu. The man many people secretly called the most dangerous businessman in the city. Marcus tapped the contract again. "Start talking." Amara hesitated. Her voice trembled. But she forced the words out. 30 minutes ago. I was downstairs in my grandmother's laundry shop." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Laundry shop?" Amara nodded quickly. "My grandma owns Johnson Cleaners on the first floor." Recognition flickered in Marcus's eyes. That shop had been in the building for decades. Long before he owned Orion Tower. "Go on," Marcus said. Amara took a breath. "I was studying French, and I heard voices through the air vent." Victor shifted in his seat again. Marcus noticed that too. Amara continued. "One of the voices was him," she said, pointing again at Victor. "And he was explaining something to another man." Marcus leaned forward. "What exactly did he say?" Amara opened her dictionary like it was a shield. Then she spoke slowly. "He said." Her voice switched into clear French. "The contract contains hidden liability clauses. Once Ryu signs it, the authorities will freeze his assets within 48 hours. The entire room froze. Victor's face lost color. Marcus's expression hardened. Amara continued. "He also said. After that, the board will remove him and we take control of everything." Silence. Heavy silence. Marcus slowly turned his head toward Victor. Victor forced another laugh, but it sounded weak. "This is insane," he said. "Marcus, anyone could make something up." Marcus spoke calmly. "In French?" Victor said nothing. Marcus looked back at Amara. "Repeat the exact sentence you heard." Amara didn't hesitate. Again she spoke in fluent French. The sentence came out perfectly. Marcus stared at her for several seconds. Then he switched languages himself. Also in French. Are you certain you understood correctly? Amara answered immediately. Yes. No hesitation. No confusion. Just certainty. Marcus slowly leaned back in his chair. Then he snapped his fingers. David. The head of security stepped forward. Yes, sir. Marcus slid the contract across the table. Have legal examine every clause. Now. Victor's voice suddenly rose. This is absurd. We're hours away from closing the biggest deal of the year. Marcus didn't even look at him. Do it. David grabbed the document and left quickly. The tension in the room became suffocating. Amara stood frozen. She wondered if she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Marcus studied her quietly. Why would you risk coming up here to tell me this? Amara looked down at the dictionary. Then back at him. Because if someone was about to destroy my grandma's life's work, I'd hope someone would warn her. Marcus blinked once. The room remained silent. 10 minutes passed. Then the door burst open. David returned. His face looked different now. Serious. Sir, you need to see this. Marcus held out his hand. David placed the contract on the table and pointed. Amara's hands were shaking as the guards walked her toward the massive conference table. She had never been this high up inside Orion Tower before. The floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city below like a map of glowing lights. But right now she barely noticed the view. Every person in the room was staring at her. Executives. Lawyers. Security guards. And at the center of it all sat Marcus Ryu. A man people whispered about in elevators and restaurants. A man whose name made powerful businessmen lower their voices. And now he was staring directly at her. Amara swallowed. Start talking, Marcus said calmly. The room remained silent. Amara forced herself to breathe. 30 minutes ago. I was downstairs in my grandma's laundry shop. Marcus leaned back slightly. That shop has been in this building for a long time, he said. My grandma says before you owned the tower, Amara replied. A faint smirk appeared on Marcus's face. That's true. Victor Delacroix suddenly cleared his throat loudly. Marcus, this is a waste of time. We have a contract to finalize. Marcus raised one finger without looking at him. Victor stopped talking immediately. Marcus turned his attention back to Amara. What did you hear exactly? Amara opened her worn French dictionary. The pages were bent and filled with little sticky notes. I was studying, she said. Then I heard voices through the vent above the shop. She pointed upward instinctively. The air vents connect to the executive floors. Marcus nodded slightly. He already knew that. Amara continued. At first I didn't understand everything. But then I heard a sentence clearly. Victor shifted in his chair again. Amara looked at him. Then she spoke slowly. He said. Once Ryu signs the agreement, the authorities will freeze the accounts within 48 hours. The lawyers around the table exchanged looks. Victor forced out a chuckle. This is ridiculous. Marcus, she's obviously misunderstanding something. Marcus didn't react. Instead he asked Amara quietly. What language was that spoken in? French. Marcus raised his eyebrows slightly. You speak French? A little, Amara said. Victor laughed louder now. A little? Come on, Marcus. This is getting absurd. Marcus finally looked at him. Do you speak French, Victor? Victor hesitated for half a second. Yes. Marcus nodded slowly. Then he looked back at Amara. Repeat exactly what you heard. Amara closed her eyes for a moment. Then she spoke. Her voice changed instantly. Her pronunciation became clear and confident. Afro-k Ryu signa elicord, les comptes seront gelis don 48 heures. The entire room froze. Marcus's eyes sharpened. Victor's smile disappeared. Marcus switched languages immediately. Also French. Are you certain those were the words? Amara nodded. Yes. Marcus tapped his fingers slowly on the table. Victor leaned forward urgently. Marcus, this is nonsense. Anyone could memorize a sentence. Marcus ignored him again. He looked back at Amara. What else did you hear? Amara hesitated. Her voice became softer. He said something else too. Marcus leaned forward slightly. What? Amara looked down at the dictionary again. Then she spoke. He said, after the accounts freeze, the board will force you to step down. One of the lawyers gasped quietly. Victor slammed his hand on the table. That's enough. Marcus's head turned slowly toward him. Victor realized immediately that he had lost control of the room. He forced his voice calm again. Marcus, this child is repeating things she doesn't understand. Marcus spoke quietly. Then let's find out. He snapped his fingers. David. The security chief stepped forward instantly. Yes, sir. Marcus pushed the contract toward him. Take this to legal. Every page. Every clause. Victor stood up halfway. Marcus, we already reviewed it with the firm yesterday. Marcus's eyes never left the contract. Review it again. David grabbed the document and walked quickly out of the room. Victor exhaled slowly. Then he turned to Amara. You're very brave, he said coldly. But making accusations like this can cause serious trouble. Amara felt her stomach twist. But Marcus spoke before she could respond. She's a child. Victor shrugged. Children can still lie. Amara's voice suddenly rose. I'm not lying. The room fell silent again. Marcus looked at her carefully. What made you decide to come up here? Amara hesitated. Then she answered honestly. My grandma told me not to. Marcus raised an eyebrow. But you came anyway. Amara nodded. I thought, if someone was about to trick my grandma like that, I'd want someone to warn her. Marcus studied her face. No hesitation. No manipulation. Just sincerity. Victor shook his head impatiently. This is unbelievable. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Then he suddenly spoke in French again. Translate this sentence. Amara blinked. But she listened carefully. Marcus spoke slowly. La confiance est l'arme. Victor Delacroix stared at Marcus Ryu like a man watching the ground disappear beneath his feet. For the first time since the meeting began, he looked genuinely afraid. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His calm was far more terrifying. You tried to bury a trap inside my own deal, Marcus said quietly. Victor lifted his hands defensively. Marcus, you're misunderstanding the situation. Marcus tilted his head slightly. Am I? Victor looked around the room desperately, hoping someone would support him. But the lawyers were silent. The executives avoided eye contact. Everyone had just seen the hidden clauses. Victor turned back toward Marcus. This was a draft version. Legal must have made an error. David, the head of security, shook his head immediately. Our legal team confirmed the language was intentional. Victor's breathing became heavier. Marcus stepped closer. You were planning to hand my entire company to regulators the moment I signed. Victor's voice cracked. No, Marcus, I swear. Marcus raised his hand. Victor stopped talking. The room was completely silent again. Then Marcus turned toward David. Call the authorities. Victor's eyes widened. Wait. Marcus didn't even look at him. Victor rushed forward a step. You don't understand what you're doing. This deal involves powerful people. Marcus finally turned his head slowly. And you thought that scared me? Victor froze. Marcus had built his reputation surviving men far more dangerous than corporate partners. Victor's voice lowered into desperation. We can fix this. We can renegotiate. Marcus shook his head once. No. Victor looked at the guards approaching him. His composure finally shattered. You can't arrest me over contract language. David answered calmly. Attempted financial fraud and conspiracy are criminal offenses. Victor's face turned pale. He turned toward Amara suddenly. This is your fault. The words exploded out of him. You little. Marcus stepped between them instantly. Victor stopped talking immediately. Marcus's voice dropped into a dangerous whisper. You will not raise your voice at her. The guards grabbed Victor's arms. He struggled briefly, but it was useless. Within minutes, police officers arrived on the executive floor. The investigation started immediately. The contract. The hidden clauses. The financial trap. Every piece of evidence pointed directly at Victor and two external partners. As officers escorted him out of the building, Victor looked back at Marcus one last time. You just made enemies you don't understand. Marcus didn't respond. The elevator doors closed. The danger was over. But Marcus remained standing in the conference room. He looked toward the far corner of the room. Amara was still there. Still clutching her dictionary. Still looking like she wasn't sure if she was in trouble or not. Marcus walked toward her slowly. She stiffened nervously. You did something very dangerous today, Marcus said. Amara lowered her eyes. I'm sorry if I caused problems. Marcus paused. Then something surprising happened. He laughed quietly. Problems? He gestured toward the table where the contract had been. You just prevented the biggest mistake of my career. Amara blinked. Marcus studied the dictionary in her hands. You taught yourself French? She nodded. My grandma says books can teach you anything. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. She's right. He looked toward the window where the rain was still falling over the city. You heard something no one else in this building could understand. Amara said softly. I almost didn't come upstairs. Marcus looked back at her. Why did you? Amara thought about it. Then answered honestly. Because it didn't feel right to stay quiet. Marcus stared at her for a moment. Then he said something she never expected. You're braver than half the executives in this building. Amara's eyes widened. Marcus turned toward David. Make sure she and her grandmother get home safely tonight. David nodded. Yes, sir. Marcus started walking toward the door. Then he stopped. He turned back. One more thing. Amara looked up. Marcus pointed at the dictionary. Keep studying. Amara nodded slowly. Yes, sir. The next morning something unusual happened in Orion Tower. Marcus Ryu himself walked into the small laundry shop on the first floor. Customers inside froze instantly. The entire room went quiet. Amara's grandmother looked up from the counter and nearly dropped the clothes she was folding. Mr. Ryu? Marcus nodded politely. I hope I'm not interrupting. The older woman looked extremely nervous. No, sir, not at all. Amara stepped out from behind the counter. Marcus placed a small envelope on the table. Her grandmother looked confused. What is this? Marcus answered calmly. For her education. Amara blinked. My education? Marcus nodded. You have talent. He looked around the small shop filled with hanging clothes and humming machines. But talent needs opportunity. Her grandmother opened the envelope carefully. Her eyes widened. "Mr. Ryu, this is too much." Marcus shook his head. "It's an investment." Amara looked at him. "Why?" Marcus smiled slightly. "Because people who notice danger before everyone else are very valuable." Amara tightened her grip on the dictionary. Marcus added one more thing. "And because courage deserves reward." From that day forward, something unusual began. Every Saturday morning Amara visited Orion Tower. Not the conference rooms. The library. Marcus had an enormous private library filled with books from around the world. French, English, Korean, Spanish. He sat across from her while she studied. Sometimes they practiced languages together. Sometimes they discussed history and politics. Sometimes Marcus simply listened while she explained new words she learned. Years passed. The quiet girl from the laundry shop grew into Dr. Amara Johnson. A world-known linguist and international mediator. She helped governments negotiate peace agreements. She translated during global diplomatic meetings. She became famous for solving conflicts that seemed impossible. At an international conference years later, cameras flashed as Amara stood on stage receiving an award for global diplomacy. The host smiled. "Dr. Johnson, many people say your ability to listen carefully changed international negotiations. Where did that begin?" Amara paused for a moment. Then she smiled. "In a laundry shop." The audience laughed softly. But Amara continued. "When I was 11 years old, I overheard a conversation most people couldn't understand." She looked toward the audience. Sitting quietly in the front row was Marcus Ryu. Older now. His hair slightly gray. But his expression proud. Amara finished her speech. "And that day taught me something important." The room went silent. Sometimes the most powerful voice in the room belongs to the person nobody is paying attention to. The audience erupted in applause. Marcus smiled. Because years earlier, an 11-year-old girl with a dictionary had walked into his office and saved everything. And that single moment had changed both of their lives forever. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this, and comment below where you're watching from. Your support helps the channel grow and keeps these stories coming.